So we are so grateful to be here this morning. And over the last number of years on Mother's Day, we've heard from Pam Gerton a number of times. We've heard from a panel of moms. Last year, you had to listen to me because I didn't plan far enough ahead and ask anyone. And so I gave you all my motherly wisdom last year. I'm sure you remember it all, and you're still reviewing those notes. But this year, you do not have to listen to me. This year, I've asked Lori Kraft to share. And Lori is a business owner in town. She's a life coach. She's been on national boards as a president and just a lot of different things. But that's not why she's speaking this morning. That's not it at all. Is over the last couple of years, I've noticed just this revival, this life, just something different stirring in her that I had not seen in a long, long time. And we've had a lot of conversations over the last couple of years, and that's why she's here this morning. As she faithfully walks with the Lord, it's overflowing into a lot of different relationships. She's a hero to her kids. She's a hero because she's married to Dennis, and Dennis can take it. And she's a hero to many here because you look to her as a mentor, as a one who speaks into your life, an encourager. And so this morning, I'm just happy to welcome Lori, for us to be encouraged by that. And so, Lori, would you please welcome Lori Kraft here this morning?
It took up some of my time, Ready? I told the first service, whoops, it comes up and it says, Houston, we have a problem. That's pretty funny. There we go. Kind of gave me chills. So I told the first service, yes, I have spoke to photographer groups all over the country. I spoke in Japan and China and with an interpreter, but you guys are by far the scariest group I've ever spoke to because you are my family. And it's always harder to talk to people that you know. So I am going to start out with just a little brief testimony. You'll find out who I am. And sometimes we feel like everybody already knows who we are, and we think we know who everybody is. And recently on a trip to Africa, one evening we were having a talk, and we were kind of finding out we may not know who that person is because we just see them on Sunday morning, or we think we know them, and we think they have it all together. Or they can't possibly understand me and what I'm going through. And so you're gonna find out how pathetic I really am, or was. I was born in 1963 to parents that were 42 years old, and right away that put me in a really strange category at that time. That's me. It was unheard of, and I became a very scared and insecure child. I was a little strange. I was always afraid I was going to get in trouble if I got hurt. A couple instances, which were one of them, I was on my way to school and I was hit by a car. It was a snowy morning, and the lady was going very slow, but I got plowed up onto a snowbank. And I'm like, don't tell my mom, don't tell my mom. And I went on to school, and a little while later, there's a knock on the door, and the school secretary is there checking on me, and I'm like, she told my mom I wasn't in trouble. And then I got hit in the head with a golf club, and when I got hit in the head with a golf club, the blood running down my face, and I'm hiding in my room because I didn't want anybody to know. And I was, again, afraid I was going to get in trouble because I got hurt. A few other instances, it was kind of weird, but the other thing was that I had a lot of separation anxiety. We didn't call it that back then. They just thought I was a naughty kid that cried all the time. I had little fears that came along, and I was scared to death to go to school for the first 3 years, and I would cry for those first few days of school until I was in third grade. And so there was a lot of fear and insecurity. And then when I was old enough to feel embarrassed, I got a little bit older, and I remember being in a McDonald's with my mom, and the cashier referred to her as my grandma. I was mortified. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't want her to feel bad or to be embarrassed, but I was embarrassed for her. And then we would do, on Sunday evenings, we would always play games with my mom, and we would play marbles, which is now everybody knows as aggravation. And my sister and I and my mom would play. My sister's here, and she was quite ruthless. She would do anything to win the game and to take her off the board. I, on the other hand, would do anything to not take my mom off the board. I would cheat, I would lose a marble, I would take my sister off as many times as I could, but I didn't want to hurt my mom. Weird. I told you I was kind of pathetic. So you see, my sister and I grew up in a home with two parents, mom and a dad. Dad worked at a factory in Lansing for 35 years. Our mom was always there for us. She worked jobs here and there, but she was always there. Now my dad was an alcoholic, and he was not there. The bottle was always in the way of our family. My dad wasn't abusive, he was just absent emotionally and physically. And I grew up with this feeling of insecurity, and I was looking for love. And it was so important to me as a child and as an adult. When I was 8 years old, my mom received her first diagnosis of breast cancer. Every time, 3 years after that, every 3 years, another diagnosis would come along, and they explained to us that her cancer was like a dried up dandelion, and when you blow the dandelion, the seeds went everywhere in her body. It eventually went, she lost both breasts, she ended up with it in her leg, lost part of a lung, and eventually in her brain. But it was all breast cancer. So at age 62, my mom passed away from the cancer that had spread through her body. 4 years later, and 2 months after Dennis and I got married, my dad passed away from complications with surgery. At 24 years old, I realized I was an orphan. At that point, I spiraled through a lot of stuff. My husband can account for that. The first year Dennis and I were married was off the charts. I lost my dad. We moved to a new town. I had never lived any place besides DeWitt, up north of Lansing. My parents owned 4 houses, all on the same side of the street. So I really never left my own little vicinity there. And to come to Marshall, to the big city, was a big deal. So after both my parents had passed away, my sister and I had to sell our parents' home and do an estate auction at 24 and 28 years old. We had to clean everything out and get rid of it. My in-laws also moved out of state and went to Florida, and we were very close to them. Dennis and I bought a fixer-upper in Marshall. Any of you remember when we had the studio down behind Fred Standard? When we bought that, it was quite awful. Plumbing wouldn't go through and all that. So we moved to Marshall, and I became another lost, lonely little girl. And I didn't see anybody that I knew. There was never anybody there. And I tell you this not for a pity party, but to share with you that we don't always know who somebody is or what is packed in their baggage. And Psalms 18, 16 through 19 is the right spot here. He reached down from on high and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters. He rescued me from my powerful enemy, from my foes who were too strong for me. They confronted me in the day of my disaster, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. That's the reason. God gave me a new life. This has been a 35-year journey since I was a lost orphan, a long journey to where I am today and why I stand before you, my church, on Mother's Day. When Pastor Chris sent me an email when we were on the mission trip in Africa, I opened it up and I was shocked that he had asked me to speak this morning. But I knew that it was one of the many things that God was orchestrating in my life. I am the mom of 3 amazing adults. Tyler's 29, Kelsey 27, and Christina 24, and a wonderful son-in-law, Andrew. And I am also the wife of a godly man that loves me unconditionally. He has been my business partner, my voice of reason, the person that'll go do anything at the drop of a hat, and the most loving father to our children. I didn't deserve him, but God knew me and provided the best partner that a girl could ever ask for. The theme for this next week is heroes, and I was really excited when Chris told me because then I at least had something to go off of because I was like, what am I going to say? So I looked up the word mom as a definition in the dictionary, and it's really pretty simple. Nothing grandiose, certainly nothing befitting of a full day of honoring mom with millions of flowers and cards from Hallmark. So then I looked up, as you can see, a female parent, and a woman in authority over her children, I guess, and Mother Teresa, and I'm not Mother Teresa. So then I looked up the word hero. And if you look up the word hero, now that's a definition. And the word hero, a mythological or legendary figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability. Every mother here is legendary and has great strength or ability. Dennis, I'm probably going to need a glass of water. Because I don't know, you told me not to put my cough drop in, but guess what? It's going in. Sorry, guys. I'll start coughing. So you look up that word, illustrious warrior. Every one of you are warriors. And men, don't check out on this sermon or this message, whatever it's called, because this is for you too. And they're also a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, and one who shows great courage. Every single day when you put your feet on the floor, it takes courage to be a mom. So today I'm going to share some of my heroes with you, the heroes that helped to raise this fearful girl into a strong woman of God. Thank you so much. Did you open it for me? You did not. Oh, yeah. You opened it and then put it back on tight. Thanks. Okay, so there's heroes that have helped transform me to who I am today. My sister is here, and she could tell you all kinds of stories of my crazy fears. And I think some of those fears came from her. Because who takes their little sister and sends them to the basement and turns off the light and shuts the door? Yes, she did it multiple times. But together, she and I faced a lot of fears. Our mom was our hero, and she kept us safe, well provided for. Look how cute we are in our little homemade dresses, made from the simplicity patterns, and our little pixie cuts because our mom cut her hair. Who remembers Dippity Doo? See, I knew there wouldn't be many in this one. Last time everybody went, yeah, I remember Dippity Doo. Okay, that's the one picture was of my mom, the one that came up next. Our mom was really strong in the face of cancer. She fought a long, hard fight until we were both old enough to take care of ourselves. I believe that my mom needed to see us be able to stand on our own and provide for ourselves before she was able to let go. And she brought us to church every Sunday. Our mom was a committed example of someone that wanted to raise her children in the church. My dad never came to church 4 times that I can remember. Both of our weddings, Christmas before my mom passed away, and my mom's funeral. So moms that are here with your church kids alone, I see you. I see you looking at the families together, and I know that that's hard. I see your struggles to get to church every Sunday by yourself. I see you looking at the families in church where both mom and dad are together, and I know that it hurts. I remember as a teen when another youth said to me, "You don't have a dad." And I was mortified. I was so hurt that they didn't even know I had a dad. And I'm so thankful that my mom made the commitment to always have us in church. My dad never fought us on that. He just didn't come with us. So single moms that are bringing your children to church all by yourself, you are a hero. You may wonder some mornings, is it worth it? Is it going to matter? And I will tell you, it is worth it every single time. God sees you. Your children see you. The church and all of these families see you. This picture is from our church directory, just the 3 of us. That was all that was in the picture. We look kind of sad. Be your children's hero and be there with them. Church, you are a hero. You, all of you, make up the church. You are a body of believers called to live on purpose together as the living church. Acts 20:28, keep watch over yourselves and all the flock of which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers. Be shepherds of the church of God, which he bought with his own blood. 30 years ago, Dennis and I started attending Family Bible Church. We didn't have any children yet. We were told, just wait, there's something in the water here. Almost a year ago to the day, Tyler was born. You probably don't know, but I had the privilege of having the very first baby shower in this church because they only gave showers when you had your first baby because we would have had showers every single weekend. So I had that honor. And then after Tyler was born, we had 2 girls that came along, Kelsey and Christina. This church helped us raise our family. Kelsey and Christina have a message to share with you this morning. As children raised at FBC, they are the perfect voice to tell you what the church meant to them. So you can watch this.
Remember the church meaning a lot to me growing up. I specifically remember getting in trouble one week, and my punishment was that I couldn't go to Wednesday Kids Church, and that was a big deal, and I cried about it for half an hour. So it definitely had a big impact on me. The thing that I would encourage the church today is to be consistent and continue showing up for those kids because it means a lot and they'll remember it when they get older who was there for them each week. So don't give up. It can be tiring, but don't give up on those kids. The second thing that I would encourage the church is be willing to have those hard conversations. There's a lot of really hard and bad things going on in this world. And as your kids get older, just be willing to talk to them about those things and just help them to trust you in those conversations and just be willing to be open about it and the things that are going on.
When I think of the church growing up, I think about, first of all, just what a safe place it was, a place that our family went to every single week, and we had people there that were encouraging. They supported our entire family. But first and foremost, the thing that I think of is how important it was to my parents and how we were there every single week. They did what they could to instill in us the importance of the church and the church body and how to be there and to plug yourself in was instilled into us in a very young age, and we knew that going to church was not an option, it wasn't a priority. But then I also think about the people that make up the church. Coming from a family that doesn't have a lot of extended family to support us, my parents knew how important it was to have people in our lives to give us the love and the encouragement and the support that we needed. And there's just so many faces and names that I can think of throughout the years, whether they were my Sunday school teachers or youth leaders, families in the church that took the time to encourage our family and to seek out my brother, sister, and I, and to push us to be who we are and to help us to grow our relationship with Christ, and how important that was for us. When I think about the church today and how to support kids, I often think about what it was like for us growing up, and I picture what people did for our family, and that sometimes was just as simple as coming beside us and inviting us out for lunch or for dinner, coming over to their house, and most importantly, it was people supporting my parents. As kids, we observed everything, and we could tell those people that really cared about our family and put effort into just spending time with us and to give us that love and support that we needed throughout the weeks, and how important that was.
I love those girls. This church helped us raise our family, and you, all of us, each of you are called to be the church. Since I am not on staff here, I may say some things that maybe Chris wouldn't say or whatever, but I'm just a volunteer. So, church, stand up for each other. This should be the safest place you go every week. This should be your sanctuary. Not a building, but a sanctuary of safety and comfort, and where you find home and you find family. It's not just for our pastoral staff to fill that role in your life. It's for you to do it for each other. To not be passive takers, but to be involved, to be present with God and for each other. You be the hero of Family Bible Church. My church growing up raised me. They met my needs as family, mother, sister, friend, and teacher. God used DeWitt Community Church to raise my sister and I. He used that church to care for my mom when she walked in alone every Sunday morning. I can say that myself, my sister, and probably my brother-in-law would probably not be who we are and serving as God has called us to do without being raised by our church. You really do make a difference. When Dennis and I were looking for a church to raise our family, we found it. It just happened to have the name family in it. We have never looked back, never looked at another church. And is it perfect? Maybe a little bit. But there's no place that's actually perfect. But we are committed to being here, to finding our sanctuary and giving our children a church that would help raise them. I praise God every day for this church and the people that call it their home. Family Bible Church, you are our hero. This next one, the next hero I want to share with you are the individuals who have helped me to be standing here this morning. You heard my distress earlier, and where did that transformation take place? Well, it wasn't quick. It was a process, and it still is. I could spend way too much time telling you about the heroes in my life, women that have stood by me and encouraged me, but there's three specific women that I want to share with you today. The first one was Helen. The first lady in my life was there until I was 19. She was our next door neighbor, and my sister and I could walk in her house at any time. We didn't have to knock. There was no safety things or whatever. My mom knew if we weren't around, we were probably at Helen's house. She had a little red cookie jar that sat on her counter, and we could go in and help ourselves anytime to that little red cookie jar. I had been dating Dennis for a couple years and decided I wanted to make him a special birthday gift. I was going to make him a quilt, and yes, I used to sew, but I do not do that anymore. I had been dating him, and this was my goal. So I made my own pattern, I bought the material, and started sewing the quilt squares together. And I distinctly remember Helen coming to visit my mom, and I was working on the quilt, and I could hear him talking. And I heard him saying, my mom, that, oh, it's a big undertaking, she probably won't get it done, I don't know why she's wasting her time, blah, blah, whatever she said. And I remember Helen looking at my mom and saying, oh, Lori can do this. She can do anything she sets her mind to. And I have never forgotten that. I will never forget those words and that she believed in me. And I finished that quilt. Who believes in you that much? And who can you tell that you believe in them? Who are you to that person? There's another lady. Her name is Marilyn. This lady is still one of my great heroes. She took me and my best friend to church camp when I was in 6th grade. I thought she was a counselor, and so my mom had me ride with her because then she didn't have to drive the 4 hours. But now I look and I think maybe she went as a counselor so I would be at that church camp, because that's where I gave my heart to Jesus when I was in 6th grade. Marilyn and my mom became best friends. They attended church together, shared similar relationships with husbands. Both of their husbands had similar lifestyles, and they took crazy road trips together and they became each other's best friends. I've always had a really special relationship with this lady. She saw me, she saw my potential, she poured into me, she prayed for me, and she encouraged me. She surprised me when Tyler was being dedicated in our old sanctuary, and she showed up to be there because she knew my mom wasn't there. When we had the auction at my parents' home, Marilyn came and bought some things. Little did I know that she bought those things so that she would give them back to my sister and I as gifts, because she knew that at that point, we didn't know what the value they would have and what we needed. I want to be a Marilyn, and I want to be that woman to you. I want to be that hero that I had, and who can you be a hero for? 2 years ago, I was surprised my dear friend Marilyn. I had found out that she was in rehab and had fallen. So I walked into her room, and she had no idea I was coming. This picture is from when we were there. And we laughed, and we hugged, and we cried, and we shared and reminisced about my mom and all the times they had. My heart was so blessed to be able to spend time with her. And when it was time to go, she walked me out the door, and we stood there, and it was hard to say goodbye. And when I got to my car, I broke down and I just sobbed, because she knew me. She knew me when. And I live in a life now where nobody knew me back then, very few people. And I love my life, but there's something about that connection. And I pray that someday I'm going to get a knock on my door, and there's somebody going to be there. It's going to stand and say, you knew me when, and I'm here just to love you and to be there for you. And I pray for that someday. And Jesus knows, and he sees us. He sees us for all we are now and all that he knows we can be. Invite him in every day to know you and to love you for all that you can be. This last one's a little harder. I didn't get through it very well last time, so I'm going to really work at this. This last hero is Bonnie, and this amazing hero entered my life and the life of my family when Kelsey was a newborn. Looking for daycare at the time, I walked into Redmond's paint store, which they used to own, and I asked if Bonnie knew anybody that did daycare. The woman knew everybody in town or was related to everybody. And she said, well, as a matter of fact, I'm starting a daycare. And so our kids started going. I think Kelsey was just a few weeks old when she went there the first time, and then Christina after she was born. And I realize that some of you now may not even know who Bonnie is or what she meant to this church and to the people here. 3 years ago, God took her home. But at the gathering a few months ago, we were talking about Bonnie, and Sarah Fetters used Bonnie's name as a verb. She says, I want to be a Bonnie. I want to be that woman that is there for everybody. And my definition of Bonnie was accepting, warm, loving, encourager, listener, faithful mom, grandma, and servant. And she would serve anybody with anything and all of her heart and all of her soul until the very last day when she absolutely couldn't. And she has always been an amazing woman in our life. For a young mom with no family here and no grandparents nearby, this relationship grew beyond the scope of daycare. The Langs became our family, our mom, our dad, sisters, and grandparents. I am forever grateful for God leading me to walk into that paint store and ask one question: do you know anyone that does daycare? Who knew that that would forever change our lives? God knew. He knew what I needed. We see the need right in front of us, but he sees the entire path. He sees that whole big picture. And I often wonder how many things I have missed because I didn't take the time to ask the question, or I didn't take the time to speak to somebody or look at them. And I didn't ask and listen for the answer. Bonnie and Claude didn't attend FBC at that time. They went to another church. But there were a couple little kids that kept asking Bonnie and Claude to come see them. Would you come see me in church? Would you come watch me do this? Would you come watch me sing? Would you come to Mother's Day or whatever? And they came, and then they became family here also. So it was two little kids that got them here, and they never left either. Family attends church together. and they worship together. They pray together, they laugh together, and they may even go to Africa together, as we went to Africa with Daisha and Claude this last year, and were able to go with them. Little did either of us know that there would be a stronger bond that went beyond the daycare years and family. Just as my mom had been diagnosed with breast cancer, there came a day when Bonnie would also have to tell me that she had breast cancer. Two of the most influential people in my life, their lives were mirroring each other way too close. Bonnie also had the kind of breast cancer that would spread through her body, and eventually 3 years ago, God would call her home. The stories they must have shared together about me and my family, and I could just picture Bonnie telling my mom all about her grandkids and all about it, because I always wished my mom could have seen who I was and how I grew up and what I'm doing now, and I didn't have that opportunity when I was 20 years old because I was kind of a brat. And all the stories they shared, there was a specific moment that I believe was God ordained, meaning nobody that God put this moment together on this planet. After Bonnie had her mastectomy, I had offered to take her to a shop in Lansing that my mom used, that my mom knew the woman that owned it, to get her first post-mastectomy bra. Sorry if that's TMI, but so one evening, Bonnie and Daisha and Molly and I, her daughters, we went to Front Room and Under Fashions in Lansing. We were going to go out to dinner and make a fun evening out of this. And if you knew Bonnie at all, Bonnie could laugh and make humor come out of anything. And so we expected this great time. When we arrived, I told the lady why we were there. And I said, and how I knew about the shop, that I knew the lady that started it. And she offered to look my mom up in the computer. And I'm like, oh, my mom's been gone a long time. By then, it had been 30-some years or whatever. And just a few seconds later, the power of computers, she goes, oh, is your mom Roberta Hobbs from DeWitt? And I was so taken aback, and I immediately burst into tears because I had not heard my mom's name in so long, and nobody knew my mom. And Bonnie didn't know my mom, and here I'm standing there for that same reason, and God had put them together for that purpose. I knew that God loved me so much to not give me one amazing mom, but two. God had been weaving my life together all along. I've heard the story of the tapestry many times. We see the underside with all the ugly strings and the knots and things that don't look like anything. It just looks like a mess. But God, when you turn it over, He's created this amazing, beautiful picture. And anybody that knows me knows that that's ironic, or not ironic, that that's a cardinal up there. Each string has a purpose. Each color completes the other, and they each need each other to make a beautiful picture. Have you ever thought that you may be somebody's hero? It's especially hard for women to think this way. It comes across as arrogant or haughty, or we think too much of ourselves. We all know we aren't supposed to be that way, but then we push it off because we're so humble that that's not good either. But what if we can own that title, hero? What would that look like in your life? I want to be a hero, and I desire to be that person for somebody else. I pray that God will use me to speak into others' lives, that He will call me out of my comfort zone, like standing here, and be called a hero of God. In August 2017, I started a journey that has been calling me forward for many years. Once again, I walked into a room as a scared little girl, way out of my comfort zone, and started a course to become a certified life coach. One of my mentors recently told me she remembered the first time she saw me there, she didn't think I'd make it. So that I saw this scared little girl. But I continued to grow and be challenged more than anything I had ever done. I signed up to learn how to be a coach. Little did I know that I would be coached by some of the most amazing and compassionate people. And we became this brilliant orchard of people learning about ourselves and how to help others flourish and become all that they are meant to be. I found so much joy and fulfillment as God continues to stretch me beyond my wildest imagination. That kind of warms my heart when Chris said that, he's seen a transformation, because you never know what's going on inside of me, but am I still the same person? 1 Corinthians 2:9, for as it is written, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love Him. And I clung to that verse because I knew that God had something so much bigger and so different from anything I had ever done planned for me. I knew my life was going to change. It was exciting and scary at the same time. It's so much easier to stay with status quo. Life was good and comfortable. And so I was talking to Chris because we'd heard a lot about retirement and all this. And I said, Chris, I don't want to retire. I said, I feel like I'm just starting up another hill. It's the beginning of a very exciting time in my life. God has been preparing me for 55 years to be able to be at such a time as this. Time to give back to my family, my friends, my church, and those I haven't even met. I'm going to share with you something that happened over the last couple months and kind of give you an insight of what's gone on. And back in February, I was talking with my life coach once again, and I ended up back at the same spot I'd been struggling with. There's this thing called imposter syndrome. And it is basically the voice that lives inside of us, and it taunts us. And it has a very low, evil laugh, and it says, what do you think you're doing? Who do you think you are? My imposter has a name, and it's actually a thing, and it's called Jack in the Box. Who remembers those ugly metal Jack in the Box that you would wind up the thing, and then they creepy music, and they jump out, and they scare you? So mine is kind of like that. When that imposter comes, it's like Jack in the Box, and the music starts to wind up. And I'm going to get one of these days. I'm going to smash it to pieces, and that's going to be the end of Jack. So if we have one. Jack has no place in my life. I have stuffed Jack back in the box more times than I can count. But I can say that he comes out a little less all the time. So back to my session in February. I was struggling with balancing my career as a life coach and my calling to serve God. How do those two fit? How do I draw the line between what is paid community serving, my coaching services and what I'm doing, and what is also ministry? I was looking for validation and affirmation because in my past, affirmation was always really important. At the end of my coaching session, I had planned to make an appointment to talk with Pastor Chris. I needed to talk this over with him, and I was grappling with probably looking for more validation and affirmation. I wanted him to tell me I was doing a good job and I was doing the right thing. So a few days later, I was driving back from Indiana after speaking to women entrepreneurs. I had done a program, and the topic that I was speaking on was imposter syndrome. So I'm coming up 69 to, I missed the first exit. I don't know what I was doing, but I got off on 94 and I came around. And as I come around, what do I see but our church sitting on the corner? And God spoke to me as clear as could be and said, you don't need to talk to Chris. I've already told you everything. You already have this. You know what's going on. You know. And I had the most heavy weight off my shoulders lifted that I did not need Chris's validation. I knew that what God had called me to. So when I was in Africa, and I opened up my email, and there's an email from Chris, and it says, hey, I know you're in Africa, but I want you to think about something. Would you consider doing the message for Mother's Day? First I was shocked. Then I laughed out loud because I'm like, okay, I didn't even talk to him. And I'm so glad I didn't, because then I would have felt like he was throwing me a pity bone. Okay, here she thinks, here, you can speak at church. Oh, there you go. There's your affirmation. So it made me feel a lot better that I had never talked to Chris. But God was already working it out, and he was already affirming me, and that's what I needed. The people that have shaped my life have helped me more than I can possibly put into words. I don't need them to keep teaching me. I need to trust that I already have everything I need. Those moments are forever etched into who I am because God put those moments there. Nothing happened in my life was by accident or to punish me. I did suffer loss at a young age and trauma and distrust, but God knew this all along, and he used those moments for such a time as this. For me to be able to stand here on Sunday, May 12th, 2019, to share my story, not so I will feel better or to boast about how far I have come from that lost, fearful girl, but for you and me to share my story, and hopefully you glean a little something to take into your own story. I've been reading the book Bob Goff, Everybody Always, recently, and there's a quote in there that says, most of us don't need more instructions. We simply need somebody who believes in us. If we're fortunate, God will surround us with friends who know us so well, they will see through the facade that we present. Then they will truly see us, the real us, the one that God created with a tapestry of strings and knots on one side and a beautiful picture on the other side. My prayer is that God has given you these heroes in your life to encourage you and walk beside you no matter what is going on, just like I have had. And I also pray that you will be that hero, that you will be that person for somebody else, that you will stand up and look around and you will be the church and you will love each other. And I give you that challenge this morning. And to wrap up, I did not talk about this person, but I could have, but it probably would have been really hard because she's here. And so I asked Pam Gerton if she would come up and pray this morning to kind of close this out. And Pam is one of my heroes as a mom. Get up here. And so I've asked Pam if she would close in prayer. And you're my hero, Pam. Leave it to Pam. Stand real close so you can talk into my microphone.
Good job. I'm glad I didn't have to do it. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for the way that you orchestrate our lives. And that Lori, who was a scared little girl, is now a confident mother of 3. And that not only did her friends see her, but you saw her. And Lord, you see all of us. You know what you have for our futures. You know what you have for our children's futures. And Lord, we just thank you for that. We can trust you for that. And Lord, I just thank you so much for the privilege of being a mother, for the privilege of being able to love those little guys and love them into adults and teach them about you. I pray, Lord, that you would be with each mom, each person who wants to be a mom, each person who maybe can't be a mom, but can love our children with us. And so, Lord, I just pray for all of us that we would, Lord, be exactly what you called us to be, that we would have a listening ear, that our hearts would be in tune with you. And Lord, we thank you for our church and for the ability to know that we're going to bring our children here and they're going to hear the Word of God, and that we're going to learn how to be better at what we do. So, Lord, I just